Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Hey, hey, hey. Nice to see you all. Welcome to this webinar. I'm very excited to have you here. We're just going to let a few other people join in. In the meantime, what you can do is drop in the chat your name, where you're from, why you're here. And if you haven't got your camera on, and you're happy to turn it on, would love for you to turn it on and be with us face to face. Hey, hey. Awesome, awesome. All right, guys. And if you can also mute yourselves, that'll be awesome. Welcome, everybody. All right. Let me just add here. Just gonna add, there we go. All right. Hey, hey. We have Raju from Stoke-on-Trent. Amazing. All right, everybody who's just joined, if you can remove the hidden camera and show us your face, that'll be amazing.
I'm turning the light on you. I can't deal with the.
All right, guys, hold on. I think I'm frozen. All right, cool. Hey, Devan, what's up? Vicky from London. Right, so if you drop your name, where you're from in the chat, we'll begin here. Welcome, welcome, everybody. It's great to have you all. Nice. All right. We will begin shortly. We have Geeta from London. Welcome, Geeta. And guys, if you can also please type into the chat, what's brought you here today? Why are you here? What's brought you here? What called you to be here? That's it. Georgia here. Looking forward to the session. Looking to live a stress-free life, to understand my anxiety. Beautiful. Sanjana, I think you've just arrived. If you are happy to type your name, where you're from, and what's brought you today in the chat. I need some help with managing anxiety and daily stresses. Yeah, great. Great. And guys, I'm gonna ask you if you are happy to put your cameras on. This will create a nice environment for all of us. If you're really not, that's totally fine. But if you are, we would love that. All right. Okay. From Geeta, I've always struggled with stress and anxiety as I have ADHD and think it comes from an ultra busy mind, excited to learn something. Amazing. I'm logged in on my phone, can't activate camera, just going to watching, I think, from my laptop. All good to manage my anxiety. Sanjana, my friend Anu has done some work with you and recommended I join in. Amazing. I love Anu. She's a legend. All right, guys, we're gonna begin. So welcome to this webinar on overcoming stress and anxiety. Now, stress and anxiety is one of the most, or two of the most prominent things that we experience as human beings. like really, really prominent in all of our lives. And I'm looking forward to take you through this webinar today, because when we can understand stress and anxiety, and we can understand where they come from and what they're actually doing in our lives, and why they're not just a pain in the ass, but actually they're there for a reason, we can start to make peace with them and start to understand how they're actually supporting us. So let me hide this. All right. So at the end of this webinar, you will receive an exclusive gift just for you guys, the attendees of this webinar. So stay with me till the end. All right, we've done this. So if you haven't yet, type in the chat your name, where you are from, and why you are here today. And if you've done that, then awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. All right, so a little bit about me and why I'm actually qualified to be teaching this to you guys. I grew up as a dancer, and I grew up with a mother who was a nutritionist. So I was always exposed to healthy food, healthy home environment. And at the age of 17, I actually lost her. And this was a big catalyst for me in my transformation, in my journey to, you know, self-development and change and transformation. And so, hold on, I'm just letting a couple of new people in. All right. And so I actually started, I left the dance world and I actually dove into personal training, and I started training people. I, you know, had incredible trainers myself. I believe strongly that we don't learn nearly as much from actual textbooks as we do from an experience. So me actually having the experience of these incredible instructors and trainers helped me become an incredible trainer myself. I then moved into bodybuilding, became a UK European champion at 19 years old and a world champion at 20, and ended up really, really sick from it. It really made me so unwell. The stress was so intense on the body from training, from under eating, from overtraining. You know, it was quite something. So I got super unwell. Developed huge gut issues, developed acne, developed all sorts of different physiological issues, mood swings, low libido, you name it, and I was experiencing it at a very young age. From there, I actually then decided to move away from this intense, kind of very, you know, I would say masculine in terms of energy world, and move into a more holistic viewpoint of life. So I started studying naturopathic medicine and nutrition. And I started bringing nutrition and naturopathic medicine into my own world and the lives of my clients, helping them, you know, overcome all sorts of illnesses and stresses, whether that be mental, emotional, or physiological. So, you know, helping people heal from different physiological illnesses, working with cancer patients, working with, you know, depression, anxiety from a nutritional standpoint, but also from a mental and spiritual standpoint. Because a lot of my teachers who I worked with were incredible individuals in the spiritual realm, people that totally changed my life on many levels. And I studied many different traditions. I studied many different, you know, aspects of spirituality. I never really clicked with religion myself, and I found that this combination of understanding the body and understanding the mind and the spirit and working with all three together was a game changer. And I managed to heal all of my ailments, all of my problems, all of my physical issues that I was having, find a lot of peace from the grief I experienced from losing my mum, and managed to help, you know, to this day, thousands of others do the same. So it's been a really beautiful, special journey so far. So I'm trained in all of these aspects, including psychology, including, you know, many healing modalities. And so today I'm going to be taking through a bit of a combo of science and spirituality, and why these two things can merge together to help us understand and overcome stress and anxiety. So why does this webinar matter? Stress and anxiety affect over 75% of adults, yet many don't understand their root causes. And they say that the 25% that are unaffected are actually affected, but really understand how to manage it. So we have, 75% of the world unable to overcome, manage, or understand stress and anxiety. And we can see this, right? We have, chronic mental health issues going on all over the globe, especially in the West. And my viewpoint on this is really because we struggle to understand our emotional world. We struggle to understand stress, anxiety. We struggle to understand ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't know how to connect with ourselves. We think we have to live this rat race of a life that makes us unhappy because that's what society's told us, and we're eating crap. So of course, all of this combined, we're going to be quite stressed and anxious. So I decided I picked this topic because, so many of us can relate to it. So this is our framework for today. Why stress and anxiety, I forgot the last word. Why stress and anxiety are so prevalent, why they arise, what they are, science-backed and spiritual tools, a Q&A at the end. We'll have time for a Q&A and a special gift that I'll be giving you guys exclusively. And then I'll be telling you some next steps you can take if you want to take this kind of education further. So my promise is that by the end, you'll have practical tools and deeper insights into overcoming these two issues. So the first thing, what is stress? So we have our nervous system. Sorry if you keep seeing my mouse, people keep coming into the room, so I'm just making sure I let everybody in. We have two sides of our nervous system. We have what we call the sympathetic and the parasympathetic response, right? We have our nervous system and there's two sides. And one side is focused on a fight or flight. So this is, you experience stress and your body goes into fight or flight. You may have heard of this before. And this is essentially saying that we are experiencing danger, there's a threat, we need to watch out. And so there's many different physiological processes that happen in the body. Our pupils dilate, our heart rate increases, our arteries get thinner, blood pressure goes up, so many different things that you'll see on the next slide. And then there's the parasympathetic response, which is the rest and digest response. But essentially, stress is really, really important. It's really, really important. Without stress, we're not able to defend ourselves. We're not able to regulate our nervous system properly. Stress is a part of our physiology for a reason. It's there to protect us. And back in the day, what would happen is, you might experience these acute moments of stress where you're being chased by a lion or you're being chased by someone and you're having to run away or you're having to get your food. And, hunter-gatherer times, this is what happened. And our bodies are not very good at adapting and changing super fast. And this isn't a problem. This is actually for a reason. The reason that they don't change super fast is because we need this stress response. We need it. And so our body is very primal in the way that it responds to things. The magic is that we have a brain and we have a mind that we can use to control this response and how we react. So stress is really important, guys. And one of the biggest myths is that stress is bad, it's terrible, you don't want to experience stress ever, this is bad. Without stress, we can't build resilience. So there's three types of stresses. There's acute stress. This is, you're being chased by a lion, there's a problem, there's a threat, and you need to react. You need to fight or you need to flee. There's a situation going on. This is super healthy. This is where, we have a stress hormone called cortisol. This is where cortisol spikes and then it comes back down quite quickly once the threat has disappeared. This is healthy. This is how we should be responding. But the issue is most of us today are in chronic states of stress. So we're experiencing stress on a daily level. We're experiencing stress from work, from home, from our own bodies, from the food we eat, from the lack of hydration. We're experiencing stress from all over the place that it's actually chronic. And this leads to, illnesses, mental and physical, and all sorts of other issues down the line if it stays chronic. So there's also positive stress called eustress, which most people don't actually know about. And eustress is as an example, it's stresses that are, you know, positive and motivating. So it might be that you exercise and feel really good after, or you get on a plane because you're traveling. It's a bit stressful, but it feels really good because you're going somewhere, you know? So these are, you know, stresses that are important. Acute stress is really important, and we can actually put ourselves into voluntary states of acute stress. And we can do this through, again, exercise. We can do this through cold therapy. We can do this through breath work. So anytime we're actually taking the body voluntarily into a moment of stress, acutely, we can experience a lot of benefits in the body. We build resilience, we feel a lot better, you know, we're getting stronger essentially. So it's only when it's chronic that it's a problem. So this is just a graph kind of showing you guys how the stress response should be and how it is in most people. The stress response should be like graph A. When there's a perceived threat or we're putting ourselves into voluntary stress, we should have a big spike, and then we should come down quite quickly. Once the threat has disappeared, once we've come out of the cold shower, once we've finished our exercise, then we should drop quite quickly, and so on and so forth. And this is how it should happen in a healthy body. But what's happening is that we are chronically stressed as a people, as a humanity, as a collective. And so what's happening is we're entering really high levels of stress, and then we're dropping really low. So in this instance here, cortisol levels are rising so high, which is our stress hormone. So we're rising really high, but we're staying there for way too long. So if we discuss those different symptoms we experience when we're stressed, right? Heart rate goes up, digestion shuts down, our arteries are getting thinner, our blood pressure's going up, we're having all of these physiological symptoms that are good for a short period, but over a long period of time, they can cause destruction. Imagine being in that state for a long time, right? Of course, the body's gonna break down at some point. So what happens is when we're high for too long, we have to balance and we dip super low. So then we get into burnout. And over time, what happens is, I'll just close that again. What happens is we're basically in this super, super high state of cortisol, and then we're dropping into burnout. And then it can happen really quickly where we have this massive spike and we go into super, super high cortisol levels. We're unable to sleep. We're super stressed, super agitated, super irritated. And then we just drop and we're in solid burnout. And then it takes quite a long time to recover from this point. So this is also an important graph because it shows us that trauma that hasn't been processed is actually really solid stress on the body, like deep stress. If we don't process trauma or process emotions from challenging situations, this turns into some serious chronic stress that can really destroy our bodies, our relationships, our reactions, and even our relationship to ourselves. So the nervous system, we have these two sides, as I mentioned. We have the sympathetic stress response. This is fight or flight. There's a threat, I need to take action. And we have the parasympathetic. This is relaxation. You're watching a movie, you're chilling, you're chatting to a friend, you're laughing. Your nervous system is in its parasympathetic response. Rest, digest, relax. So in a healthy body, we can recover from acute stress rapidly. So we can literally, as you can see from this diagram, we can rise and we can fall really, really, really fast. In a healthy body is in a parasympathetic state 99% of the time. So you're only in a sympathetic fight or flight state when there's a perceived threat, which ideally is not often, and also when you're voluntarily putting yourself into a momentary, state of stress through cold therapy, through exercise, through intense breath work, and so on. A healthy body has high cortisol levels in the morning and low melatonin levels, and vice versa in the evening. So I'm just going to touch on this for a moment. Does anybody here struggle with sleep? If you do, just put your hand up like this. If you struggle with sleep. Yeah, we got a few. All right, cool. Yeah, perfect. All right, so there's actually this axis, right? There's this axis called the cortisol and melatonin axis. And if you imagine a seesaw, right? If you imagine a seesaw like this, and we have cortisol up here and melatonin down here, they can never both be high or both be low. When one is high, the other is low, and that's how it should be. So in the morning, we want cortisol to be high, which is our stress hormone. It's our waking hormone. It keeps us alert. So in the morning, cortisol's high. It's what helps us wake up. Without cortisol, we'd be exhausted in the morning, which happens when people have low cortisol levels. So we can wake up and we want to be super alert. Cortisol levels are high. Melatonin levels are low. Melatonin is our sleep hormone. So we want melatonin to be low in the morning and cortisol to be high. And we want this to swap around in the evening. So we want melatonin to be high in the evening and cortisol to be low so that we're sleepy and we get to bed. Now, there's a few things that disrupt this axis. And one of the biggest ones today is actually exposure to blue light in the later hours of the day. So this is exposure to screens, 1 to 2 hours before bed without any protection from the blue light. This blue light actually signals to your body and tricks your brain into thinking that it's daytime. So your brain still thinks it's daytime, and it messes up what we call our circadian rhythm. And our circadian rhythm is the natural rhythm of our body. It's our body clock. So when the circadian rhythm is out of balance and maybe cortisol levels are high in the evening, we're not going to be able to sleep very deep or get to sleep very easily or stay asleep very well. We're not going to get into those deeper layers of sleep where we actually start to recover. So if I can give you a tip on sleep, one tip, there's many. I could do a whole webinar just on sleep, which I probably will do at some point. But one tip for today for sleep is try to either avoid blue light and white light. I'm talking bright light from the ceiling, blue light from screens before bed for 1 to 2 hours. Or you can use blue light blocking glasses. My favorite brand is called Blue Blocks. And it's not called Blue Blocks anymore. They changed their name a week ago to Boncharge. Boncharge, Boncharge. You can get, I see you with your, yes. I don't know your name because I see you here as Enchanted Products. But that's it. We have these blue light blocking glasses, which are super important, and they help us block the blue light emission from the screens so that we are actually keeping our melatonin levels high at night. So this is ideally what we want to be doing before we're sleeping. So this is just a little diagram for you guys, just to show you here what happens when we are in a parasympathetic state, rest, digest, relax, and what happens when we're in a sympathetic state, right? Fight or flight. Now, if you have a look at the sympathetic side, you'll see the pupils dilate, saliva is inhibited, heart rate increases, the airways relax so that we can breathe really deep and really fast. We inhibit activity of the stomach, inhibit gallbladder, etc. So we need this. If we're about to fight or flee, we need to make sure that we can fight or flee and we don't need to go to the toilet. We need to make sure that we can just go for it. We need to make sure that we're not going to be digesting food because we need all of that blood flow to go to our limbs so that we can run. So all the blood flow comes away from the organs and goes to the peripheries of the body. It goes to the limbs. And when we're in a relaxed state, all the blood flow goes back to the organs to help repair and digest. And so you can imagine when we're in this chronic state of stress, we're in this sympathetic nervous system. And what's happening is essentially we are stopping any blood flow from really getting to the organs, getting to the brain, and we are inhibiting, recovery, and we're inhibiting all of these essential pathways from firing to help us relax, to help us recover. So over time, this is why it can lead to illness, it can lead to depression, it can lead to severe anxiety, and so on. So moving on to anxiety, right? What is anxiety? So the first phrase I wrote here, anxiety is fear's way of trying to find a solution. is one of the most epic and beautiful descriptions I got from a teacher of mine. And this is essentially saying that the root cause of anxiety is always a fear of something. But when we can't find a solution, we get anxious. When we can't find a solution, maybe because the actual thing that we're fearful about is in the future, it hasn't even arrived yet. And so we get anxious. And anxiety is essentially fear's way of trying to find a solution to something. And so this is a beautiful explanation that I really, really loved, because it really helps us understand that, you know, oftentimes when we're talking about anxiety, it's quite a buzzword at the moment. And oftentimes what you'll hear is, yes, it's fear of the future. It's, you know, these different sensations I get in my body, but no one's really talking about the root cause of it. Like, that's great, but what's the root cause? What's behind it? And it's usually, and from what I've seen, 99, if not 100% of the time, it's a fear of something deeper. So there's a fear, and then we're trying to problem solve that fear. So from a kind of science and spirituality perspective, it is a misfiring of the brain's threat detection system. So the brain is detecting a threat that's not actually present, because normally we're thinking about the future, or we're thinking about something that could happen, you know, in the very, very near future, right? It often arises from a fear of surrender. So oftentimes what I've seen with all of my anxiety patients, all of them, is a terrible fear of surrendering. Why? Usually this goes back to childhood. And I've seen this time and time again in childhood, is that, you know, as a child, you have actually been taught that feeling certain emotions and acting in certain ways is not safe. Maybe dancing freely is not safe. You were judged for that by your mother or your father. And so what happens is we then build up these programmings and we build up these belief systems about what is safe and what isn't safe. And when we are in a situation that demands us to surrender to something that our brain has perceived as unsafe in the past, we can enter into a state of anxiety, because we're like, holy shit, I don't trust this. What am I going to do? Right? And so instead of actually surrendering and letting go and trusting the process, which, you know, is very difficult if you haven't been taught that it's safe to do that, the only other option is to go into a state of stress and anxiety and to panic, right? So in these moments, the best thing we can start to do, and we'll get into the ways to overcome stress and anxiety in a minute, but one of the best things you can start to do is build trust with your emotions again. Start to build that trust with your emotions. Start to build that trust with your body, telling your body that it's safe to feel certain things, and actually start to become aware of the programmings and the limitations that you have built up since childhood that may not actually be real anymore. And as an adult, you can actually make a change. So oftentimes, you know, this, as I've just mentioned, it's related to a suppression of emotions, a suppression of who you really are. I see this often. This is a big one, which is, and you might relate to this if you experience a lot of anxiety, it's oftentimes a suppression of who you are. And I can relate to this personally as well. I never experienced like panic attacks or severe anxiety. I've helped hundreds of people with this problem. But I did experience a lot of anxiety, and my root cause, which I then found to be the root cause of many people, was hiding away from who you truly are. Like truly not being your truest, authentic self. And this was one of the most epic revelations, because what you'll find is, whether you want to call it your soul, your intuition, or, you know, your sixth sense or your gut feeling, there's a part of you that knows who you are. And every time you suppress that part of yourself, you will enter a state of discomfort. And it might be on a micro level until that eventually builds up to a state of anxiety. So we want to be asking ourselves these questions. Where have I been like pushing myself aside? Where have I been ignoring who I really am and not really connecting to that? So it can be really, really overwhelming because the brain makes fears seem larger than they are. So it tends to do this often. When we experience a fear, instead of actually practically dealing with it in the moment, we can tend to, make it seem a lot bigger, a lot more intense than it actually is. And we enter into a state of shallow breathing. And if we don't control our breath, that in itself can just perpetuate the anxiety. So gaining control of your breath, and some of you on here will know I'm a big advocate for breath work. I'm a holistic health specialist, but also a breath worker. And breath work has been one of the biggest catalysts and changed my life in the most incredible ways. And so, it's essentially a vicious cycle that we enter into. So you can see here on the right, this little diagram. We start the cycle, there's an event and a worry, maybe thoughts. We experience anxiety and then avoidance and safety behaviors. This is the big point here. We go into avoidance and safety. We don't allow ourselves to feel the emotion. We don't allow ourselves to process the fear because we're too scared. We don't know that it's safe to do so from conditionings from our past. And so because of the suppression, the signal gets louder and then it repeats. So this point here is where we want to be breaking the cycle. Because if you can actually sit with your anxiety and just let it be and dive into and start to investigate what's the actual fear beneath it, you will start to break this cycle. So why do they arise, these two things? Well, lifestyle and physiological causes, psychological and spiritual causes, work, your day-to-day life and how you're living. All of these are reasons why stress and anxiety might arise. From a lifestyle perspective, if we're not sleeping well, if we're dehydrated, if we're not eating nutritiously, if we're doing all of these things wrong, essentially, this will just naturally cause stress on the body because it causes inflammation. Processed foods, inflammation. Dehydration, inflammation. Lack of sleep, inflammation in the body and the brain. All of these things leading to literal, physiological stress in the body. So, if you are someone that's not eating clean, if you are someone that's drinking 750 mils of water a day, if you are someone whose sleep is messed up, these are the first pillars to start exploring. Really, I can't emphasize this more. These are the pillars that you want to start exploring and working with. And they're easy. You can start drinking more water. You can start incorporating more healthy foods. These are easier things to do and will help the body with this, physiological stress response. Then obviously we have psychological and spiritual causes. So abandoning your true self by people pleasing, again, a tendency that I see in so many people, built up and learned from childhood. Oh, to be accepted by this group, I have to act in this way and put my true self aside. I have to always say yes or I'm going to hurt their feelings. And, every time you're doing that, you're saying no to yourself, basically. And this builds up stress, and if you are someone who does this, you'll know this. Again, something I see time and time and time again is this people-pleasing tendency. It's very deep-rooted in our culture. Sacrifice is a deep-rooted thing in our Western world. Losing touch with your intuition and heart, feeling unfulfilled or out of sync with your life's calling, working a job that you really, really don't like, but you're doing it because you got to do it. What I always say to people, to clients of mine, and I've heard all of these stories. I can't, I have kids, I can't, I don't have time, I can't, this and that and this and that. I've heard it all, and we've transformed it every time. And the excuses need to go. If you're someone who is really not living a life, not working a life that makes you happy, the excuses need to go. Like, I'll just say it straight. they need to go. And you need to start connecting with what it is you're truly looking for, what it is you truly want, and start to take small steps towards that. Because it's okay to do something you don't want to do for a short period of time. That's fine. Sometimes you have to. You know, you might have kids, you might have a family, you might have a contract in place. You know, sometimes you got to do it. But again, if you see the theme here, it's that we don't want anything chronic. We don't want to be doing anything chronically. We don't want to be in a stress state chronically. We don't want to be working a job we hate chronically. We don't want to be abandoning the connection to our heart chronically. You know, sometimes there's acute moments of all these things, and that's all right if it's for a moment. You know, there might be a reason for that. But whenever these things are chronic, it's a problem. So really just starting to take a moment to pay attention to where you might be acting out of sync with yourself, whether that's physiologically, mentally, or spiritually. All right. So we've actually gone through this bit. So we're going to go to this bit, the reflection. So in what ways do stress and anxiety impact your life? I want you guys to take a moment to write this down, whether it's in your notes, in a notebook. Just actually take a moment to write this down. In what ways do stress and anxiety impact your life? And think work, relationships, personal life, the way you think, the way you feel. And what solutions have you tried so far that have helped? And you can type it in the chat, share it with the group. We'll give you guys 5 minutes or so. All right. So have a good think. And you can type this in the chat as well as write it down, or just type it in the chat, whatever suits you. Just reading some of the comments here in the chat. Nice, Raju. Prayer and meditation help a lot. Having faith. Nice. Really nice. So how is it impacting your life personally? And what have you tried that's helped? Things that you can share with the other people here. Beautiful. Walks, self-care, music, spirituality. From Sanjana. Helen, exercise, reading, music. Beautiful. And Raju, impact-wise, getting triggered easily. Yeah, that's actually a very, very good point because you know, when we are easily stressed or easily triggered, this can be an easy way to tell that we haven't got very high resilience to stress. So ways to build resilience are by voluntarily putting yourself into acute situations of stress. And this is only for people that are not in chronic stress already. Because if you are in chronic stress, all you want to do first is make sure you get that back into balance. That's the first thing. But if you would say that you are generally, you know, in a healthy state, emotionally, sleeping well, eating well, and you feel like you're in a good place, then, you know, getting yourself into acute moments of stress, cold therapy, exercise, you know, intense breath work, things like this can be really, really powerful for building that resilience up. When you can do it in those moments, you help to build resilience for the external world. All right, let's get back into it. Exercise, reading, music. Yes, less motivated. Reduced capacity. Walking helps. Nature. Started getting debilitating migraines. Tried breathing, deep meditation, and warm baths. And did that help you, Geeta? Did those things help? Prevented me from pursuing some of the things I desire, being so busy worrying to enjoy life, trusting in the universe, connecting with my religion, believing everything is happening for me. Best case scenario, meditating and pranayama. Beautiful. And thanks, Geeta, for sharing. Nice. Awesome, guys. Awesome. Yeah. So as you can see, there are many things that can help with the symptom, right? We have loads of things that can actually help with the symptom in the moment. There's many things we can do. We can do breath work, we can go for walks, we can take a bath, we can slow down. And these are important, but if you're not dealing with the root cause of the stress, you're putting a band-aid on an open wound instead of actually sewing up the wound. So we need to be looking at what is the actual root cause of the stress, you know, and it's not to say that you shouldn't still be doing the things that help manage the stress and the anxiety, but we want to be really dealing with the root cause at the same time so that you don't need to keep doing that, right? Who here finds themselves on a day-to-day needing to do some kind of stress management or anxiety management tactic? Put your hands up. Actually, most of you haven't got your cameras on. If you can turn your cameras on, I've just noticed. Yeah, everybody's got their cameras on. Most people have their hands up. Yes. Yes, great. All right. So exactly. So, you know, we want to really be understanding the root cause. So let's get into that a little bit. So overcoming stress and anxiety. This is the framework that I have been using and have helped literally thousands of people overcome stress and anxiety. And this doesn't mean they don't experience it. It means that they're not dying from stress and anxiety every day. And they're not just like living with panic attacks and living with deep stress every day, because that's not life. Yeah. So the framework is like this. You want to understand the root cause of the stress and the anxiety. What is the fear? What is the root cause? What is causing it? Is it a toxic relationship? Is it work stress? Are you working a job you hate? You know, are you eating processed foods every day that you know you shouldn't be eating? Are you dehydrated? What is the root cause? Is it physiological? Is it emotional? Is it mental? Is it spiritual? Do you feel disconnected from your purpose? What is that root cause? The next step is a really important one that most people skip, which is essential, which is acceptance. We need to accept that root cause as fact, as present in our lives. So if we know that the root cause of our stress is we haven't actually been, you know, processing the grief about our father who died, we have to accept that, because you could be aware, but your mind can then play a trick and like flip it and be like, hey, let's go do something else because this is too intense right now. And let's just get out of here. So in those moments, it's when you come into acceptance. You have to be like, you know what? Yes, this is present. This is here. I accept that this is with me and I'm no longer going to run away. And you have to make that promise with yourself that whatever it is, you look it straight in the eye. If you've been working a job you hate and you have been too scared to leave that job for whatever reason, time to look at it. Time to look at the root cause. The next step is creating an action plan for yourself. Small steps that you can start to take towards that goal, towards where you want to be. So in this example, you know, the root cause is unprocessed grief about my father who died. The acceptance is acceptance of this fact without resistance or, you know, buts or trying to run away from it. The action plan is, you know, plan to journal about this every day and let myself cry. Also go to therapy for support. That might be an action plan. And then the last step is take action. A lot of people stop here as well. They create a great action plan. You know, they learn all the knowledge, they create a great action plan, they write it all down, and then they don't take action. And this happens a lot. So making sure that you go through these 4 steps is key, and you hold yourself accountable. And you get someone to hold you accountable if you need that extra bit of support, so that you make sure you go through this whole thing. Yeah. So this is the framework. This is the framework that I really, really recommend you get acquainted with. You can take a little screenshot of this if you like. And start to work with this. And, you know, this can be used for small stresses or big stresses. It can be used for anything that is causing you stress and anxiety. All right. I'll let everybody take a quick photo. All right, we good to go? Yeah? Cool. All right, let's go. So how to overcome them, right? We discussed lifestyle challenges, changes, and how these different ways of living can actually transform our stress levels. So, when we are, as I said, eating badly, we're dehydrated, we're not exercising, we're not sleeping well, what happens is we raise our inflammatory markers in the body. So our body becomes highly inflamed. And when this inflammation is chronic, this is where it can lead to disease, and this is where it can lead to low immune function and poor gut function, poor brain function, and so on. And this then obviously leads to us not living a very nice lifestyle. Maybe we are not present for our loved ones. Maybe we're finding it difficult to work. Maybe we're just super uncomfortable, and it's not a great way to live, So we want to be focusing on how can we reduce inflammation in the body, because that will automatically be reducing stress in the body. So hydrate, eat nutritious foods from nature, move your body, get into a solid sleep routine. Your day-to-day work and home, not living a life that fulfills you and makes you happy leads to stress. It just does. And, it's not to say that we're going to be happy 24/7. Like, I experience stress a lot. It's normal. It's a part of being human. It's important. But I do what I love for a living. And, I have people who grew up in the same environment way as me. I even have a brother who is living a life that doesn't really fulfill him, So it's not about how you grew up, where you grew up to a certain extent, and so on. It is really about the choices you make now as an adult. Now you're here. Are you happy? Yes or no? Are you happy in your relationships? Are you happy with your work life? Are you happy with where you're living? No? Cool. Let's take the steps to make a change. What small steps can we start to implement? Is it scary? Yeah, maybe. Fantastic. What I always tell people is this: it's going to be challenging either way. You're going to experience some kind of pain and challenge either way. But would you rather experience pain from staying where you are, or would you rather experience pain from following the life you really want to live? That's your choice. And for me, the pain of following the life I want to live any day. So build a life that you love. You can do this. And if you believe you can't do this, there is the root cause of your stress. That belief system, there it is. You can do this. I've seen people do it with no money. I've seen people do it from all sorts of backgrounds, places. It's not about that. It's about the choices you make and the steps you take to get there. Is it challenging? It could be, but worth it. Trust me. So start to think about these questions. What do I want to experience? And who do I need to become to live that experience, to live that life, right? Who do I need to become? Not what do I need to do to become that person? Who do I need to become right now in my being to live that life that I want to live? And start to connect with who that person is. Yeah, what that person looks like, what that person eats, how that person lives, how that person moves, how that person interacts with the world. Start taking small steps towards that. Processing emotions, our last and big one. This is where, when we're running our breathwork sessions, our transformational breathwork sessions in London, most people are having wild breakthroughs in these sessions. Why? Because we hold so much that we haven't processed. And when you're given a safe space to process, the body is like, thank goodness, And so the most important thing, and again, I could do a webinar on emotions alone, or even a course, but the most important thing to remember is this: emotions are electric in nature. They need to be discharged, and they get discharged through feeling. If we don't feel them, they get bottled up, pushed into a corner, and they will just get louder and louder. And by louder and louder, I mean via pain, via, physiological pain, via mental, emotional pain, via illness. And what we find so often is that when people start to process emotions and process trauma, their pain disappears, their relationships improve, their illness starts to get better or disappear. I've seen it happen. I've seen people stage 4 cancer, not do any chemo or radiation therapy, anything like this, and focus on deeply healing psychological wounds from their past. And I've seen what happens. It's quite magical. And so when we are suppressing our emotions on such a deep level, we are putting them into a corner. This causes inflammation in the body. Inflammation doesn't just come from processed foods. So this causes inflammation, it causes stress, it causes anxiety. So start to trust your emotions and feel. Your emotions are not there to harm you. They're not there to scare you. The problem occurs and the pain occurs when we resist them, when we suppress them. Guys, that's where all the pain comes from. Yes, it hurts to feel grief, but it hurts more when we feel the suppressed grief, because that grief is 10 times more intense. So if you can start to process emotions as they come and start to get really connected with them and friendly with them, you will, and I guarantee this to you, you will experience a transformation in your life that you didn't know was possible. Relationships open up, your heart opens up, interactions change, the way you feel in yourself, the way you start to say no to what doesn't serve you. You're like, you know what? That's not for me today. And your friend's like, what? You never say no to me? This becomes natural because you start to really respect yourself on a whole other level when you actually feel your emotions. And when you start to feel deeply, you build that connection with your intuition, you build that connection with your heart, and you really start to reshape your reality. So it seems simple, just feel, but as you know, it's not such an easy thing for us to do necessarily. So I'm here to tell you that you are safe to feel, and the emotion will pass, it will get discharged. It may come back again, but it won't be necessarily as intense. So just let them move. They just need to move. So feel, cry, scream, laugh, dance. Emotions are your protectors. They're there to protect us. They're there to support us. They're there to help us process challenges from everyday life. Nothing to fear. They make you human and help you understand who you really are and what you really want. So feel. All right. So we're going to move into our Q&A. Let me just see. I know there's some comments here. All right. We're going to move into our Q&A, and then I'm going to give you guys your gift for the end of this. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is in the chat, if you can just message a question, that'll be fantastic, and I'll be able to answer them out loud. So just using the chat. Let me have a look at some comments in the meantime. Great. Any tips on overthinking, please, from Raju? Yes. Okay. So generally with overthinking, one of my teachers, an amazing spiritual master, said to me, overthinking is an addiction. He said, people who overthink are addicted to it. They are addicted to overthinking because it keeps them, they feel safe when they overthink. They feel like they're finding a solution. And if they don't overthink, they're not being able to find a solution. So with overthinking, the first thing we really want to start doing is to change our state. And sometimes we're not trying to change the story immediately. We're actually trying to change our state first. So what I mean by this is if you're literally in a cycle of overthinking, and we can also do this when we're experiencing anxiety or stress, you literally stand up and you do 10 push-ups, or you do 30 really powerful breaths, or you shake about and you scream and you go rah, and you go for it. And what you want to do is change your physiological state, you know, do 50 sit-ups. Just get your body moving, and you want to use your body and you want to get yourself out of your head by doing something challenging for you. You know, whether screaming is challenging, push-ups, whatever it is, just get into your body. And once you've done that, you can start to actually sit and write out what's happening in your mind. Because when we keep it in the mind, it can go in a loop. When we get it on paper, and there's a lot of research to back this up, when you get things on paper, it really helps the mind to understand, process, and get a lot clearer on what you're actually trying to solve. So those would be my 2 tips for overthinking and when the mind is racing. Get out of your mind, get into your body, and start writing things down. All right, how would you suggest I should go about stress and anxiety that I experience due to pressure that I put on myself? It's normally about achieving or doing well at something, maybe a bit of a perfectionist mindset. Thanks, Vicky. Great question. Perfectionist, funnily enough, was the second addiction that he told me about. So we have overthinking, we have perfectionism, we have a couple of others. I won't mention them here, otherwise it will be information overload. But here is where you want to start to dive into your past and start to look at where this mindset may have come from. You know, where were you pressured into being the best? Was it your father? Was it your mother? Was it someone else? Was it a teacher? You know, where were you forced, pressured to be the best and to know that love came to you when you were achieving, when you were doing well in their minds? And so, you know, really, Vicky, go back into that space and start to explore that state. Start to explore, you know, where did this come from? When did this start? Can I recall memories as a child where, you know, I was putting pressure on myself, or I was told that, you know, I was given a gift or given something only if I achieved something. You know, if I got good grades, I was taken out, but if I did something really kind for someone, that was never praised. You know, so where did you learn that validation and love comes from, you know, achieving? So that's the first thing. Find that root cause, find that root, space that root cause, acceptance, and move into those 2 other stages after that. Yeah. Being compassionate with yourself. All right. Meditation tips for AM or PM. Anxiety in the morning, can't get up. All right. So, anxiety in the morning, you want to be looking at what you're doing the night before. What's your routine before bed? What are you doing before bed? Are you creating a calming sanctuary for yourself? Most nights for me, you know, an hour before I sleep, I'm in a red lit, if not very dark, pink lit room, you know, reading, breathing, talking to my husband, slowing things down 1 hour before bed. Really, really slow. Because what can happen is if we go to bed stressed and anxious, we can wake up stressed and anxious too. We are not allowing our nervous system to relax and rest. And if we don't allow our nervous system to rest and our cortisol levels are too high when we go to sleep, then we can wake up not having gone into deep sleep, called REM sleep, REM sleep. We don't get into REM if we are with high cortisol levels before bed. So we need to make sure we're getting our cortisol levels down before bed. Melatonin levels are high. You're working on that and making sure that, you know, you get into those deep states of sleep. You can also track those states of sleep with an Aura ring, or there's different ways you can track it to see if you're getting into REM sleep. And likely, if you're sleeping well, you won't wake up anxious. But if you are still, it could be for other reasons. The best thing to do is go straight to your breath. Go straight to your breath. Slow the breath down. So 5 or 6 seconds in through the nose, 5 or 6 seconds out through the nose. And you do that for like 20 or 30 breaths. Super slow, super controlled, slowing and calming the nervous system. And you should notice after about 10 breaths that the nervous system starts to relax. All right. Do you wear glasses when using red light panel? I don't. I actually love getting the light in my eyes. But I tend to meditate in front of the panel. For anybody that doesn't know, a red light panel is basically this red light that's emitted. I have one right here. It emits red light that, you know, has many powerful anti-inflammatory effects, but also mimics sunlight in a way. It mimics afternoon sunlight, so it's really, really powerful for many physiological things in the body. So the answer is no, but I tend to meditate in front of it, so that's usually why. All right. What time do you advise the best time to meditate in the morning? That's dependent on you, totally dependent on you, what feels good for you. There's no one size fits all. So whatever feels good for you, whatever feels good for you. Morning, it can be early, it can be when you wake up. I would say try not to wait too long from the moment you wake up. Try to do it before you touch your phone or your computer. But in terms of exact time, that's up to you. All right, everybody. So, completion gift. For all of you here, we have an event coming up on the 23rd of February, a breathwork, transformational breathwork experience. So here, using this code, you can get 25% off this event for you and a loved one. And I'm going to be running this event with a friend of mine. It's going to be a really epic experience running it together. So we're really excited about it. So keep this code. The code is webinar. And we're going to send you now the link in the chat. So you'll see Andres has sent you guys a link in the chat. That's the link to the event. And the code is webinar. So just keep that safe with you. The link is in the chat. All right, guys. So next steps, a few announcements for you guys. We have a new, right now, obviously we're hosting all of you guys on the WhatsApp chat, community chat. We're moving over to an awesome platform in about 2 weeks time. We're super excited. We've got everything nearly ready. This platform is built for community. So you guys get a really nice user experience, user journey. You'll get access to webinars like this on a weekly basis for free. You'll get access to free educational content. You'll get access to free recordings, breathwork recordings. We're going to be really providing you with some awesome stuff this year to help you on your journey. We're then also launching a community, another community, which is the course is going to be hosted in this community called Empower. And Empower is really, you know, if you want more information like this, if you want to take your, you know, self-development journey to the whole next level, then this course is for you. We don't only cover, lifestyle optimization and things like this, but we cover psychology. We go deep into healing. We go deep into spirituality. We go really deep into other aspects of lifestyle optimization. I help you understand, you know, how to build a really beautiful relationship, different methods of communication, that you can learn as well for business, for relationships, a method of communication that transformed my intimate relationships in a really powerful way. And you'll learn so many other things. So what you can do here, if you are interested in this, you can join the waitlist using the Empower link that was sent in the chat just now. This is the waitlist to join the Empower group. And you can also book an onboarding call with me directly if you are interested in joining this and finding out more about it. We also teach you guys, you know, how to really just live the life of your dreams, live the life that makes you happy, live a life that's fulfilling, live a life where you have amazing relationships, where you have, you know, an amazing work life, where you know the steps to take to get there. And we help you handheld get there to the end step. So, if you feel like joining that or booking a call, you have those links there. And it's been a pleasure, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, you know, just send me a message. I'll be right here to answer for you guys. And thank you all so much. Yeah, thank you. And have a beautiful evening. Have a restful evening. get off the screen soon, at least. And sending you guys a lot of love. Make sure to save those links if you did want to check anything out or book a call. All right? Lots of love to all of you. And I will see you in the groove. Ciao.